It has now been one full week of severe weather across the central and southern U.S., and the threat continues tonight. Texas, Tennessee, Oklahoma, and Missouri all had hard-hit moments in the past 24 hours.
All right, there it is right there. Oh my God!
Before the title, before the fear, before anyone asked whether this was a sign of the end, there was a radar screen over North Texas on the night of April 25th, 2026, tracking a single isolated supercell as it formed near Wichita Falls and drove southeast through Jack, Wise, Parker, Tarrant, and Dallas counties. In Runaway Bay, a small city on the shore of Lake Bridgeport about 45 miles northwest of Fort Worth, the storm did not arrive as a distant spectacle. It arrived as pressure, velocity, and darkness collapsing into one narrow strip of land. By the next morning, officials had confirmed one death in Wise County, another in Parker County, major structural damage across neighborhoods, and families pulled from homes that no longer looked like homes. A title can exaggerate. The first hours in Runaway Bay and Springtown did not need exaggeration. They already carried the full weight of fact. Source. At 9:03 that night, the National Weather Service says the Runaway Bay tornado touched down on the south side of U.S. Highway 380 near Port Oakall Drive and Pinto Court. What began as a 100 to 200 yard swath of tree damage widened and intensified as it moved west towards Cimarron Trail and Jasper Creek Road. Survey crews found broken windows, failed garage doors, uprooted trees, substantial roof loss, and manufactured homes so badly damaged they marked the difference between EF1 and EF2 force. The tornado stayed on the ground only about 4 minutes and traveled roughly 1.4 miles. 4 minutes. That is all it took to kill one resident, injure at least 6 others in Wise County, and push at least 20 families out of their homes. In a disaster, brevity is part of the violence. The event ends quickly. The evidence remains everywhere. Source. If a scene like this strikes something deeper in you, not because of rumor, but because of what ordinary families endured in a matter of minutes, say where you stand in the comments. Not with slogans, not with panic, just with honesty, because this is where viewers often split into two camps. One sees weather as numbers, maps, and warning polygons. The other sees a Saturday night turned inside out, where one neighborhood loses a roof, another loses a vehicle, and another loses a person whose name will now be said in the past tense. A documentary like this has to hold both realities at once. It has to follow the measured language of meteorologists and the broken language of survivors who can only say the floor shook, the lights went out, and everything familiar began to move. Source. Runaway Bay was not the only point of impact. At 9:38 p.m., another tornado touched down about 3 miles west-northwest of Springtown in Parker County and remained on the ground for 32 minutes, tracking southeast for 9.8 miles. The Weather Service later rated that tornado EF1 with peak winds of 105 miles per hour. At nearly the same time, rear flank downdraft winds west and south of the tornado track slammed other homes and businesses with estimated speeds of up to 110 miles per hour. Then came a separate image that spread quickly because it looked almost cinematic. Lightning striking a gas storage tank in Springtown, sending a column of fire into the storm-dark sky. City officials said the incident was isolated and there was no ongoing threat. That did not make it look less severe. It only showed how many different forms one storm can take at once. Source. By the end of that first phase, the storm had already crossed a line from meteorology into full emergency response. Roads were blocked. Utilities were down. Power outages spread across damaged areas. Wise County Judge J.D. Clark said access had become difficult because of blocked roadways and downed lines, while crews kept pushing forward to reach people in need. In Springtown, one resident described sheltering in a mobile home hallway with 4 dogs as the house shook and the lights went out. In Runaway Bay, aerial footage showed exposed timbers where roofs had been, walls peeled open, debris fields laid across yards and streets, and neighborhoods still under roadblocks more than 30 hours later. In disaster documentaries, There is often a dramatic line where the ordinary world ends. Here, that line was simple. The screens dimmed, the power failed, and after that, people were left to hear the storm more than see it. Source. Daylight did not soften the damage. It clarified it. In Runaway Bay, the destruction was not abstract when seen from the ground. It had grain, edge, and weight. Splintered wood stood upright like broken bone. Corrugated metal was bent back in long silver sheets. Insulation clung to branches. Garage doors had folded inward. Window frames were empty. Entire roof sections had been lifted and carried away, leaving bedrooms open to a pale Texas sky. The places hit hardest were not large downtown blocks built in concrete and steel. They were residential stretches where fencing, carports, manufactured housing, sheds, driveways, utility poles, and mature trees stood close together. Storm damage in a place like that has a dense, intimate look. You do not scan a skyline to understand it. You look at one porch, one yard, one snap tree, one bedroom wall missing from a house that still has family photographs inside. Source. The Weather Service survey of Runaway Bay gives that wreckage a precise geographic frame. The tornado formed near Port O'Call Drive and Pinto Court, then moved west, near Cimarron Trail and Jasper Creek Road. Survey teams found the broader field of EF0 and EF1 damage. But inside it, they identified narrow corridors of stronger destruction created by small vortices embedded within the tornado itself. This matters because tornado damage is rarely uniform. One house may lose shingles. The next may lose its second-floor exterior walls. In Runaway Bay, investigators found both. A two-story home lost roofing and outside walls on the second floor. Two single-wide manufactured homes were completely destroyed. Another home lost nearly all of its roofing. At peak width, the tornado measured just over half a mile wide. That is not a metaphor. That is a moving corridor of air broad enough to swallow several blocks at once. The most severe damage in Runaway Bay centered on a double-wide manufactured home that survey crews found about 100 yards downwind from its original site, with additional debris thrown several hundred yards beyond it. The Weather Service said the damage was consistent with a high-end EF2 tornado, with winds up to around 130 miles per hour. A person died in that residence. CBS Texas later reported that loved ones identified the victim as 51-year-old Juan Madrid. That single detail changes the entire visual field. A torn wall is no longer just debris. A displaced frame is no longer just a sign of wind speed. It becomes a point on a final map of where a human being was when the structure failed. Documentary work has to stop there for a moment, not for effect, for accuracy, because this is the line where damage assessment becomes loss assessment. Springtown presented a different, but equally harsh, field of evidence. Most of the tornado damage there was to metal buildings, roofs, and tree limbs. Yet two separate homes in very different places along the track suffered enough structural failure that portions of their second stories were partially missing. Ground footage showed the Springtown city limit sign down, metal debris scattered across roads, power lines hanging or sheared, trees down, and a large building toppled by the storm. One Weather Service report cited in local coverage described a vehicle blown off the road into a ditch with trapped occupants, though no injuries were reported in that specific incident. The tornado path itself was difficult to separate from the surrounding rear flank downdraft winds. That ambiguity is part of what made Springtown so frightening. The visible funnel was only one part of the danger. The psychological wall in both communities comes through most clearly in the voices of people who stayed. Springtown resident Stephanie Bryan told CBS Texas that she lost a double carport, a chicken coop, a shed roof, one chicken, two mature trees, and part of her porch. She said she sheltered in the middle of a house with 4 dogs while the lights were out, then heard the wind, then heavy rain and hail, and then felt the floor shaking under her. That kind of account is more useful than any dramatic music cue. It tells you exactly how fear arrived, not as one loud instant, but in stages. Darkness first, wind second, then the realization that the structure beneath you is no longer still. In Runaway Bay, another resident said the night had been terrifying and later went to church to give thanks for surviving it. After a tornado, people often speak in short sentences because long ones ask too much breath. By Sunday morning, local government had shifted into a search and rescue posture. Judge Clark said all ambulances were committed after the severe weather incident in Runaway Bay. Roads were severely limited by debris, downed utilities, and blocked structures. A reunification center was established on Port O'Call Drive. The American Red Cross moved in to help displaced families. Texas Task Force 2 joined organized search operations. Parker County Assistant Fire Chief David Pruitt reported significant damage south of Springtown and said widespread power outages were one of the most serious ongoing challenges. This is the second wall a disaster puts in front of a town. The first is the storm itself. The second is the slow, disciplined work that follows, where responders have to move through neighborhoods one address at a time, not yet knowing who is trapped, who is missing, and which buildings are still safe to enter. At this point, the real twist in the story becomes clear. Runaway Bay and Springtown were not struck by a random patch of rough weather. They were hit by a single organized supercell moving through a highly unstable environment over North Texas. The Fort Worth Weather Service later summarized the larger outbreak this way. From April 24th through April 29th, severe storms affected parts of North and Central Texas for 6 straight days. On April 25th, the evening sounding showed extreme instability, with mean layer CAPE above 4,100 joules per kilogram, a lifted index of -11, steep lapse rates, and enough low-level shear to support a few tornadoes if storms could break the cap. One storm did. It stayed isolated. It organized. Then it produced 4 tornadoes across Jack, Wise, and Parker counties, plus large hail, damaging winds, and flash flooding. The night in Runaway Bay was local. The engine behind it was regional. There's another reason meteorologists focused so closely on the damage field. The storm left behind visible proof of rotation. In television coverage from Runaway Bay, CBS Texas meteorologist Nellie Carrion pointed to snap trees leaning in different directions and explained why that mattered. If the damage had come only from straight-line winds, the trees would tend to fall one way. Instead, investigators saw a rotational pattern, matching the radar signature that had tracked through the area around 9 p.m. the night before. That is the kind of evidence a factual documentary can trust. It is physical. It is measurable. It links the radar image to the ground, and it shows how a tornado writes its presence onto a neighborhood even after the funnel is gone. Broken trunks, displaced vehicles, peeled roofs, and twisting debris paths become a kind of silent transcript of the wind. The timeline tightened as the supercell moved southeast. At about 10:14 p.m., radar detected what the Associated Press described as a potentially large and extremely dangerous tornado near Azle, another 10 miles southeast of Springtown. That detail matters because it places Runaway Bay and Springtown inside a moving corridor of threat, not a single isolated touchdown. The storm was still alive. It was still capable of producing violent rotation farther down the line. A responsible script cannot say the whole world was shocked. That is tidal language. What it can say is that by late Saturday night, emergency managers in North Texas were tracking a storm that had already killed displaced and ignited secondary hazards while continuing east-southeast through populated areas near Fort Worth. In that context, every minute between warning and impact becomes brutally valuable. Springtown added another layer of sensory violence. During the storm, lightning struck a gas storage tank, triggering a large fire that lit the sky. Video of the strike spread quickly because it looked like a separate disaster unfolding inside the same weather system. But city officials and local reporting stressed a critical point. The tank fire was isolated, and there was no ongoing threat from that part of the incident. That clarification is essential in a factual script, because in moments like these, people naturally compress events together. Funnel, fire, darkness, sirens, hail, wind. It can feel like one seamless wall of crisis. Yet documentation shows a more exact picture. An EF, one tornado tracked through the Springtown area. rear flank downdraft winds caused severe damage nearby. Lightning struck the gas tank. Each part had its own mechanism. All of them happened under the same storm canopy. Then there is the darkness itself. In survivor accounts, the loss of light appears again and again. Stephanie Bryan said the lights were out while she waited in the center of her home. In Runaway Bay, footage and official statements pointed to downed utilities, blocked roadways, and neighborhoods still too dangerous to reopen more than a day later. WFAA reported stories of people trapped under debris and families trying to find each other in the dark. That is one of the sharpest contrasts in modern storm coverage. We live with constant feeds, radar loops, warning apps, and live video. Yet when the storm enters the room, the most advanced systems can be reduced to flashlights, dead intersections, and voices calling through debris. A high-end broadcast can show the path after the fact. The people inside it often experience the worst part with almost no image at all. What happened in these towns also exposed the gap between public familiarity and actual meteorological complexity. People in North Texas know severe weather. They know hail, shelf clouds, spring alerts, and the sound of sirens. But the April 25th environment was unusually primed. The Weather Service described a strong subtropical jet around 100 knots, persistent Gulf moisture, steep lapse rates, and a cap that limited storm coverage while raising the ceiling for any storm that could break through. One storm did break through, and because it stayed relatively isolated, it had room to organize. That is a cold technical description. The human translation is simpler. A storm system does not need to cover an entire state to change lives. Sometimes one cell is enough. One corridor, one town on a lake, one town farther southeast, one night that starts like weather season and ends in a death count. By this stage, the documentary has to narrow its lens again, because the most revealing material is not only in official summaries, but in the fragments captured while the storm was still moving. Storm chaser Jason McLaughlin told CBS Texas he had been live while the tornado impacted the area and saw large power flashes in town. He said the damage west of him was severe and the movement looked erratic, possibly even suggesting more than one touchdown pattern before final survey work was complete. Those remarks matter because they show how unstable the event looked even to people used to reading storms in real time. Live coverage often creates the illusion of control. It does not. A chaser can observe a power flash, hear radio traffic, and still not know which house has just been destroyed 2 blocks over. The hardest factual turn in the Springtown story is that not all lethal force came from the funnel. The National Weather Service and local reporting said the death south of Springtown was associated with rear flank downdraft winds rather than the tornado itself. CBS Texas identified the victim as 69-year-old Kathleen Leetsky after her family member called 911 from the debris of a severely damaged mobile home on Hutchinson Hill Road. The Weather Service later wrote that the distinction between the tornado track and nearby downdraft winds was difficult to determine in places. That line deserves attention because it breaks one of the public's strongest assumptions. If there is no funnel overhead, the most dangerous part may have passed. In Springtown, the broader circulation still carried enough force to kill, even outside the core tornado path. Aerial footage from the aftermath makes the storm's force easier to understand than any graphic. In Runaway Bay, WFAA and CBS chopper images showed exposed roof frames, collapsed walls, shingles stripped away, RVs flipped over, vehicles tossed, and debris fields spread across yards and roads. In Springtown, Fox 4 footage showed down signs, torn metal, damaged structures, trees on the ground, and power infrastructure cut apart by the storm. What stands out in both communities is not just severity, but unevenness. Some houses remained standing with visible roof scars. Others were opened almost completely. Some trees were stripped. Others were snapped low. A storm survey reads this pattern scientifically. A town reads it morally, almost existentially. Why this address? Why not the next one? Why one family displaced and another in mourning? Weather has no answer for that question. The response that followed was large for a reason. Wise County established a unified command structure involving law enforcement, fire departments, EMS, utility partners, the Red Cross, Texas Task Force 2, and the Texas Division of Emergency Management. On April 27th, Governor Greg Abbott issued a disaster declaration covering Wise, Parker, and Lamar counties, while the state began preliminary damage assessments with federal partners. Those actions can sound procedural in a script, but they are a direct measure of scale. A county does not ask for a disaster declaration because of scattered shingles. It does so when local capacity is no longer enough. When roads need clearing, shelters need support, power restoration becomes a regional problem, and recovery costs push past what a community can absorb on its own in the first days after impact. Recovery also has a physical grammar. It begins with roadblocks and hazard tape, then debris staging, then disposal sites, then assessment forms, then insurance calls, then nights in temporary shelter, then weeks of cleanup. Wise County opened dump sites, waived brush and storm disposal fees for residents, and created temporary debris collection points, including a site in the 300 block of Overland Trail and another near FM 2123 and County Road 3655. Runaway Bay opened its event center to provide food, toiletries, and supplies to affected residents. These are the details that mark the shift from impact to endurance. The tornado lasted 4 minutes in Runaway Bay. The cleanup started 2 days later. The administrative aftermath will last far longer. This is often the hidden half of a disaster story, the part that does not fit cleanly into a clip of a funnel cloud. And the threat did not vanish when the April 25th storm passed. The larger severe weather pattern across north and central Texas continued for days, with additional storms, hail, flooding, and later tornadoes, including a stronger Yef, 3 near Mineral Wells on April 28th. That continuation changes how the Runaway Bay and Springtown disaster should be seen. It was not a strange break in an otherwise stable week. It was part of an active, multi-day stretch in which one supercell after another found a volatile atmosphere ready to support major damage. For residents already dealing with destroyed homes, that meant something especially cruel. Recovery had to begin under the possibility of more weather. A storm zone becomes harder to repair when the sky is still negotiating whether it is finished with you. So what do we do with a title that asks whether the end is near? The factual answer is no responsible meteorologist or emergency official would say that. But the title survives because it speaks to something real in the public mind. The sense that systems are becoming harder to trust. A warning arrives on a phone, but the storm is faster than belief. A family has shelter, but not the right kind. A community knows tornado season, but the damage path still cuts through familiar ground with new severity. In Runaway Bay and Springtown, the shock did not come from prophecy. It came from how little distance remained between routine Saturday evening life and catastrophic loss. That narrowing gap is enough to frighten people without any help from mythology. The deeper story here is also structural. The dead were not lost inside towers built for high wind engineering. One victim in Runaway Bay was in a double-wide manufactured home displaced from its foundation. Another south of Springtown was found in the debris of a severely damaged mobile home. The most serious risk often concentrates where housing is lighter, older, less anchored, or simply more exposed to open terrain. Add rural roads, scattered development, power lines, and delayed nighttime visibility, and the margin for survival shrinks. This is why storm documentaries should resist easy awe. The real issue is not that nature is dramatic. It is that some communities remain physically more vulnerable to it. Disaster is not evenly distributed, even when the warning polygons are. The official recovery process tells the same story in another language. Residents were urged to file damage through the state's ISTA system so Texas could assess the full scope of losses and determine what further aid might be needed. SBA preliminary damage assessments followed. Utilities had to be restored. Roads had to be cleared. Temporary disposal systems had to be built. Search teams had to verify affected areas. When people speak of resilience after a tornado, this is what they usually mean, though the word often arrives too early. In the first days, there is no grand resilience. There is paperwork, chainsaws, bottled water, borrowed rooms, donated supplies, and the quiet discipline of identifying what can be saved from structure that no longer keeps out rain. There is also a wider climate of strain around the event, even if this specific tornado cannot be reduced to a single easy explanation. The Fort Worth office documented 6 straight days of severe weather in late April, driven by a slow-moving upper-level trough, strong jet support, deep Gulf moisture, and enough instability to generate very large hail, tornadoes, damaging winds, and flash flooding. On April 25th alone, the same supercell that killed in Runaway Bay and south of Springtown also produced hail up to baseball size and severe damage along a long southeast track. These are not imaginary pressures. They are atmospheric ones, measurable ones, the kind that translate quickly into emergency calls and damaged neighborhoods when they line up correctly. The world does not have to be ending for a region to feel overmatched. If there's one message this documentary should leave with the viewer, it is not that hidden meanings were uncovered in North Texas. It is that ordinary evidence was enough. A radar signature, a 4-minute tornado path in Runaway Bay, a 32-minute tornado track near Springtown, embedded vortices, rear flank downdraft winds, a lightning strike to a gas tank, 2 deaths, at least 6 injuries in Wise County, at least 20 displaced families, roads closed, power out, search teams moving house to house. Those details are not cinematic decoration. They are the whole case. They show how a storm becomes a civic crisis, how a local event grows into a state emergency, and how quickly people are forced to measure life in before and after rather than morning and night. And that leaves the final question where all serious disaster reporting eventually arrives. Not whether the sky is sending coded messages, not whether one storm can stand in for the fate of a nation. The harder question is whether modern people, surrounded by forecasts, models, alerts, camera feeds, and live updates, are actually becoming more prepared in the moments that count. Because in Runaway Bay and Springtown, all the technology in the world still gave way to dark hallways, shaking floors, snapped trees, power flashes, blocked roads, and names spoken by grieving families. We can map the atmosphere in remarkable detail now. We can estimate cape, shear, wind speed, path length, and width. But when the lights go out and the structure starts to move, readiness becomes personal, local, immediate, almost severe in its simplicity. Who has shelter? Who has time? Who gets the warning? Who believes it fast enough? And who, after everything hidden inside the storm is brought into the open by morning light, is left asking whether we have learned nearly enough from what the wind keeps showing us.